Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today, I am joined by another guest straight off the Twitterverse. I am joined by Leona. You may see her around on the Twitter if you're in the Tabletop Roleplaying Game or TTRPG community. Leona, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. I know that before we start recording that I was telling you that I've enjoyed being able to follow you on Twitter and seeing what you are doing. Just whatever you post and talking about your business and all sorts of different things that you're into.
Well, thank you. I've been really enjoying engaging with the tabletop RPG community. I just find that it's such a receptive community, which I love. I've actually tried to do this kind of work in other communities, and I've gotten way less further in a much longer period of time. So this fandom is just like the sweet spot of really great community. So it's just been a blast engaging with everyone.
It has. It's definitely something where even when I started the podcast, I was hesitant to use Twitter because I'd used it before and I'd heard how terrible it is and it's just not a good thing. And I fell into the tabletop community in Twitter, and it's been overall a really great experience just being able to talk with so many different people that are in the community.
Yeah, honestly, I keep coming back to Twitter. No matter what I do, I kind of end up circling back. And I think that um, for communities, Twitter's a great way to go versus another social media like Facebook or something like that. I'm a communications major by day, so I could go on and on about this.
I totally understand. But we're definitely going to talk about tabletop role playing games shortly. But I did want to tackle two of like your bigger fandoms that you had told me about, and the first one is Marvel.
Yeah, so Marvel's kind of like, if you ask me what fandom I'm in, that's the fandom. I feel so weird because I feel like I haven't really like engaged with a fandom in a really long time. It's been a while since I've like, do you know what I mean? Like been a part of a fandom, like specifically for something. Marvel was kind of the last one that I was a part of, and that's the one that I've been in for the longest. So I've definitely been a part of that for a very long time, and done all kinds of nerdy fangirl things, the fan fiction and the whatevers, right? All of that stuff. So that's kind of, I guess, the main fandom that I can say that I'm a part of. Yeah.
As far as Marvel goes, are you more into it on the comic side, the movie side, the TV side? Like, where do you fall in the fandom?
Ooh, so I'm kind of all over the place. I fell into the fandom through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when that first came out. So I started with the TV side, and then I started watching the movies, and so I've seen all of the movies, and then I got into the comic books. So I'm kind of a little bit of everything, which is great because I get, so much content and just so much good stuff, and so I love it.
Absolutely. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as an entry point, that is a really interesting first start of the Marvel fandom.
Yeah. It was really cool coming in when that show was first airing because you almost didn't need to know anything about Marvel to understand Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, if you were a diehard Marvel fan and you knew the stuff prior, it made the show that much better. But for me, coming in as a fresh pair of eyes, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, it's just this really interesting program that was so compelling and so interesting. And I knew nothing about, Agent Coulson and, the man, the myth, the legend that he is. But, I just kind of fell in love with that team and the dynamic and what an interesting storyline there was. And then, of course, having done that, I went backwards and started watching all the movies so that I could rewatch season one and enjoy it that much more. So,
Did you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. all the way through, or did you stop at a certain point?
I fell off the bandwagon, oh, somewhere around second or third. I think it was third season. So I'm very, very behind. This is a perpetual trend with me. Is I'm very behind on the MCU in general. um, but that's fine. There's so much content, and so it's hard to keep up for me. But yeah, so I don't remember what it was. I think I got frustrated with the storyline, and I kind of fell off the bandwagon. At some point around there. But my little brother, he's about 10 years younger than me, and he kept up with it and he watched, I think, the entire series through. So I've kind of, via osmosis, kind of kept up with bits and pieces of what's going on.
I totally understand. I know that I had watched probably like half of the first season and then I just stopped and I never went back to it, even though I heard it got really good.
It did. It was a slow start, but it got really, really good. And I still think season one is probably my favorite.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it at some point. But there's so much now to like watch anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much.
As far as the movies go, do you have a favorite movie
Ooh, that's so tough.
or a top three?
I think I would be very amiss if I did not say Black Panther. I think that was just an absolutely phenomenal movie, and there was just so much richness to it, and I loved every second of it. There wasn't a moment where I was bored. I was just, it completely captured my imagination. So definitely that one. I'm a huge fan of the Captain America movies. I think they're so good. So that whole like series of movies is another one that I love. I'm a huge Captain America fan. Let's see. Those are kind of the ones that are coming to mind. I mean, oh god, they're all good. Like Iron Man movies are good. Like, it's hard to pick. Oh, you know what was a really good one? Thor Ragnarok. That was just absolutely, Taika Waititi did an amazing job. It was absolutely off the walls, and it was just the perfect kind of accumulation of the first couple of like Thor movies, and like seeing the arc of Loki and Thor, and how they, kind of progress in the way that plays out in that movie was just absolutely fantastic. So I think Black Panther, Captain America series, and Thor Ragnarok gotta be in my top three.
That's a good cross section of the Marvel universe. I know that my middle son, he had been begging me for months. Can we please watch Captain America? Can we please watch Captain America? Finally, Saturday rolled around, and we watched the first Captain America, and they all loved it. Like uh, I think because partly their social studies in school right now, they're getting ready to start talking about World War One, and it's like,
Yes.
okay, this isn't World War One specifically because World War Two, but getting to them to understand like what's going on and seeing it kind of through like one of their characters that they love was a little bit of a help, but they loved it, and I'm super excited for them to watch a few more of the movies.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of fun. I remember we watched the first Captain America movie, and my mother happened to sit down and watch with us, and even she was just like, "Wait, but what happens next?" And I'm like, "Aha, we got to see the next movie for that."
My wife has seen just a few of like the Marvel movies, and I had asked her. I said, "Oh, did you like Captain America?" And she said, "Yeah, but I really think I need to start at the beginning to watch everything." And I said, "Well, that's not a problem. We have Disney Plus now."
Yeah, no, 100%. My poor mother, because she was watching just bits and pieces in random order, was like so confused. And I was like, okay, hold on. We're going to sit down and do this properly.
1 month later.
We've gone slowly but surely.
Now, with the Marvel universe having kind of like, at least on the movie side, the cinematic universe has kind of like taken a pause. We have Black Widow coming out later this year, and along with that, we have the Eternals, and then a lot of like the Disney Plus shows slowly starting to come out this year. What in this future MCU, like what are you most looking forward to?
Ooh, I have no clue. I would say the Black Widow movie just because I've been wanting that for such a long time. So I'm very glad that that's happening. I'm not quite up to date on what the fandom discourse is on that movie and if people are into the way it's being set up and all that. But I know that regardless of what it is, I'm gonna go into it looking forward to it and just excited to see what they do with it.
Me too. It's funny that like we're getting a Black Widow movie now.
Hmm.
It really should have come out a number of years ago, and even when I started the podcast, which is going on 4 years later this year, is that one of the first episodes I had was a conversation about where's our Black Widow movie? Why don't we have one?
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. Yeah, it should have come out way sooner, and I think it would have been so cool if it did because it would have added so much to um Hawkeye's backstory as well as Black Widow. I mean, they're such great characters, and I've kind of gotten more into Hawkeye's backstory through comic books and stuff like that, and oh, he's such a good character. He's such a good character, and so I just they only have so much time when it comes to these films, and I'm like, oh, but you could deep dive into this character's backstory, but I guess you can't. So
Exactly, and that was a great transition because I was going to ask you about comics, like which because there's a bajillion Marvel comics out there, and
yeah.
they seem to change every week or every couple of months. It's like there's new comics coming out. What are some of your favorite comic series in Marvel?
Oh goodness, I have stopped being able to keep up with those as well. I think I've got a whole box of them happening now, and I think what I really need to do is just switch to digital, possibly. But I have been a diehard collector of the Ms. Marvel comics, specifically the Kamala Khan ones, and I kind of showed up just as that was also a thing that was beginning to happen, and just having a woman of color who's a superhero, who is of a culture very close to mine, just spoke to me in so many ways. And she's a fangirl herself. She's so relatable. And so I think every single issue, if not some doubles of most of that issue, right up until I could keep up, and then my local comic book store closed, and I haven't been able to get copies since.
Oh no, not the closing of the comic shop.
Yeah, I was really sad about that one because they were local and they were really, really great folks. But hey, you know what? I totally get it. There are other comic book shops locally, but they're much further out.
Mhm.
So it's just been a lot tougher to get to them, and so that's why I'm like, that's okay. I might as well just collate my collection and go digital. But yeah, so Kamala Khan Miss Marvel is definitely my number one absolute favorite. And anything that ties into that, just because, like I said, she's absolutely by far my favorite character. Um, and I think beyond that, it's really just been engaging with as much like Avengers stuff that I can. Anything that has Agent Coulson in it, I'm there. Anything that's got Hawkeye and Black Widow, I'm there. Like what I mean? Like there's so much choice. So what I would do is I would just go into the comic book shop and I would kind of walk up and down the entire row of all of the new comics, and I'd kind of pick up a couple and flip through them. I'd be like, okay, this one looks good, this one looks good, and then I would just kind of go that way. I have so many of the comic book tie-ins to the MCU, because those are all so good too. So
I know. I mean, you laid out your love of Kamala Khan, and I have to agree because her character is probably one of my favorite characters that has come out of Marvel in the past. I don't know what 10 years or so. Like I'm thinking back to the character before that came out that I fell in love with was Miles Morales, and then
yeah.
Kamala Khan, and I love that they've had not only like tremendous success like in the comics, but then like Miles with Into the Spider Verse and Kamala Khan has been mentioned a number of times about being in something either on Disney Plus is coming soon or in a maybe like the Captain Marvel movie,
Ah!
sequel, and I'm just so excited. And then with that new Avengers game that's coming out, that they're the new video game, is that Kamala Khan is like the central character in that game apparently.
Oh my god, are you serious? I need that in my life. Anything to do with Kamala Khan, I'm oh my goodness.
Yeah, I believe the story is something happens and the Avengers break up, and then you're mostly at some point, like the single player game starts off with you as Kamala, I believe, like trying to either bring them back or bring them back together, something of that nature.
Okay, that's really cool. I love that. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna need to hunt this down and get my hands on it.
I think it got delayed, so I don't think
Ah,
it's out until like either later this year or early next year.
okay. So I got time.
But you've got plenty of time. But Kamala Khan, definitely one of my favorites in the Marvel comic universe, and hopefully soon on a screen near us.
Yes, I hope so. Gosh, I love her. I also loved when they had Lockjaw on in the show, or not in the show, in the comic books when
Hmm.
Lockjaw shows up, and oh my goodness, I could, like I said, I could go on and on forever because it was just so good.
Oh my goodness, Lockjaw, one of the best like animal-ish characters in the
So
Marvel
cute.
universe.
So cute, but so badass too. I love him.
Exactly. There's so much good stuff out there. And I do have to just say, I love that when you're talking about a character like you see Hawkeye in the movies and then digging into like his story in the comics,
Mm,
like that's super awesome because I don't think a lot of people that have seen the movies have really done that as far as Hawkeye goes
mhm.
because his story is so interesting even from way back in like the 80s and 90s
God,
to what
yeah.
they're doing with him now.
I think there's a little bit of privilege there. I think I was very privileged to have a comic book shop near me where I had easy access to all of this stuff.
Mhm.
And before that, I've always been into comic books, but I wouldn't have even known there was a comic book shop. It just happened to be that a friend of mine showed me where it was, and that's kind of what got me hooked. Whereas I don't know how accessible, comic book shops I think are kind of a little bit harder to find unless you know where to look.
Mhm.
Even though they are available online, I think, online can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming too, right? Because there's just such a wide array of comic books that you don't even know where to start. So I feel very, very lucky and privileged and a little bit spoiled that I was able to kind of go into that. But yeah, Hawkeye is just such a great character, and I there's just so many underrated moments of him, especially even in the first Avengers movie, like when he's on top of the building and he shoots an arrow without even looking. Um, and there's just so many things that are being hinted at in that 2-second moment of his incredible talents and skills, and like I said, I just wish that we could get more Hawkeye backstory.
Exactly. I totally agree, and I don't know what their plans are for the future, but maybe we'll see him pop back up here or there.
I hope so.
So on top of Marvel,
Mhm.
which is a massive expanse of a fandom, another fandom that you're into that I've seen a few episodes of it, but I don't think I've seen all of it. Absolutely not all of it. Is Teen Wolf.
Yeah. So Teen Wolf, again, I haven't seen all of it, but whatever I did watch, I absolutely loved. I'm a huge fan of Holland Roden, the actress herself. She plays Lydia. And okay, so Lydia herself is an amazing character because when you first meet her, she seems like the popular girl, but it turns out that she's actually an incredibly brilliant mind. Um, and then that poor brilliant mind has to turn into a banshee and has to go through that and have that whole experience. And there was just something about that story that was so compelling to me. And I think her and Styles just made an amazing pair, and it was just so good to watch that. And I haven't finished the series, though I do know how it ends. But that will always be my favorite ship. And then on the other hand, Holland Roden, who is the reason I got into Teen Wolf in the first place, is incredible because before she started Teen Wolf, she was actually studying to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. So not only is she like gorgeous and incredibly talented, she's also really, really smart because I don't think it's easy to become a surgeon. So I was just like, this is a really amazing person playing this really amazing character. Like, I'm sold.
I can't even look at blood half the time, and for somebody to be like going into like cardiothoracic surgery, like number one, that's like super specialized, and you're going to have to be in school like during your residency and fellowship. That's like a 10-year, 10-year
Right?
thing. Holy cow.
And she just happened, like, her acting career just happened to take off, and that ended up being the direction she went in. But I remember seeing that in the interview and just being like, "Oh my god, like, this girl is amazing, like, go you."
How did you first get into Teen Wolf? Like, because I like the when I got into it was I had seen a number of commercials about it whenever I used to actually watch TV,
Mm.
but then I had so many friends keep talking about it to the point of, okay, enough. I'll watch it just to check it out.
I definitely heard about the hype about Teen Wolf, but, oh my god, this is the most, like, embarrassingly nerdy thing ever. I was, hugely into, like, role playing and, like, online forums and role playing. And so Holland Roden at the time was the face claim or the avatar that I was using for my character. And just out of sheer curiosity, because I was like, this is a really, like, beautiful human. Like, I'm so lucky that I get to, like, like, she's got so many great photos and she's in this really interesting show. Why don't I just, check it out, because I'm really into, you know, what she seems like she's all about. And so that was kind of the sideways way that I ended up in the Teen Wolf fandom, was just because I had Holland Roden as a face claim, and I was like, I want to know more about this person.
Out of curiosity, what website did you use for this online role playing?
I use Twitter.
Oh my goodness, okay. I did not I had heard people using, like, Twitter for doing the online role playing because I did the same thing, but on, like, sites like Insane Journal and
Mm.
LiveJournal
And
stuff.
that's I've
Like
heard a lot about that, and I was never on, like, the forums or on the live journal pages. I was always doing it on Twitter. Oh my god, I had so many accounts with so many different characters, and I'm still quite proud of quite a few of them. I've life is busy, and I never got a chance to go back to them, but it was fun because you get to, like, create this entire persona, and it was just neat to be able to role play as this one character, and have this kind of developing story with other people. And at the same time, because it's a social platform, you're able to see other people's storylines and their role plays, and just you can interact with them, and it was a whole blast. It was a lot of fun.
that's exactly what we did. I did, and here I am talking about like the same thing is that you'd pick characters from TV shows or movies or whatnot, and then you'd have them come in from that canon point that you're bringing them, but they're interacting with so many different people that they become like a separate character from what you actually see in their show or movie.
Yes.
And that's how I became friends with a few people that I'm still friends with today. Like offline is just from writing with them so much.
Yeah, same here.
It's so wild. And hey, don't let that be like the super nerdy thing about, because I there are people out there, and I'm not going to name names, but they're in the community, the TTRPG community, and that's how I became friends with some of them is just from doing that and writing back and forth, doing like stories and logs and everything else.
That's so true. And you know what? The more I don't know why it was always kind of like, oh god, like, this is so nerdy. Like, everyone's gonna think I'm so weird that I do this. But the more I talk about it, the more I come across other people that are like, yeah, I did that, and I'm like, oh, okay. I guess a lot of us are doing that. That's cool.
Exactly, and it's more like instead of doing like solo fan fiction, it's fan fiction with a number of people with different
Yeah.
characters from across fandoms.
Yes, and it's really cool because you have a general idea of what the plot line is going to be, but you don't know the twists and turns that it's going to take. And I loved that.
Absolutely. See, all good. Now, I think I caught Teen Wolf up to the point where she became a banshee,
Mhm.
and then that was it. Like I think I stopped or fell off of it at that point. Again, I think it was a combination. Like is on MTV, and I had a hard time finding it online to watch at
Mhm.
times. how much did you get into it? Did you I know you said you didn't finish it, but
Yeah,
did you
I
get
feel like
far into it?
I got a fair ways into it. Definitely, I got to the point where she became a banshee, and uh, a little ways into that. I feel like I saw like how some of the characters would like die and come back as different, animal creatures and all that kind of stuff. So I got a fair ways into it, maybe about halfway through.
What was the draw for you in Teen Wolf besides the actress initially?
Um, so much of it for me was Styles and Lydia. Lydia's character and that story, and just I was so curious to see what happened to her as a banshee. But also Styles was just such a great character, such great comic relief, and just like I was also like, okay, I want to see what happens to Styles, like what happens next. And yeah, they're just my two favorite characters. I was less interested in some of the newer characters like Kira Yukimura. Sorry, she's probably great, but I was so much less interested in her than I was in like the original four. Just because yeah, they were all really interesting.
If you were telling people now about Teen Wolf, because Teen Wolf's been off for a while at this
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
and they're listening to us talk about it, what would be your pitch for them to get interested in the show?
Who? I would say Teen Wolf is it's all about like is mythology the word? I mean, because you have so many different like almost like folk tales coming together. Like you have fox people and you have, banshees and werewolves and just so many different like folk story type elements that come together. And I think that makes it really interesting is that you have or urban legends, I guess you could say, and having all of these urban legends and what happens when they all end up in a high school together, you know,
Mhm.
and how that plays out in incredibly wild and terrifying ways. So I think I would pitch it that way. Is it's really it's all about urban legends that kind of all kind of come together under one high school and how that plays out and what it's like being a teenager and also being a werewolf, banshee, fox, etc., etc.
Any other assorted thing under the sun.
Yep.
It's like Monster High.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's another show that it'd be nice to go back and watch at some point, but there's just so much out there,
There's too much.
so
There's
many
too
things
much.
to do.
Yeah, there's way too much. I can't keep up with all of it.
One of the things, and I mentioned it at the start, is how I got to find you on Twitter was through the tabletop role playing community,
Mhm.
and I'm curious to know how you got into that community or how you got into tabletop gaming.
Yeah, it was actually through my partner. And they were a part of the welcome to the party community. And I was talking to my partner when we first connected and started dating and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, you do like streams, that's so cool. Like like, oh my god, you play D&D. Like I've heard of this thing. I don't know how it kind of, I guess it was just kind of part of the phenomenon at the time, and so I kind of knew that it was this thing that existed. And so I was like, oh my goodness, that's so cool that that you do this. I've always been so curious about this, but I've never really, had an inroad to being able to like learn about this game or what it's all about. And so I just, I was so curious about it and I asked them to tell me more and they were like, well, why don't you join Welcome to the Party? Because it's a space for folks like us that don't normally get a chance to play, queer folks, people of color, so on and so forth. And it's all about teaching people, so it's great for new people. And at the time, I was like, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I was so nervous because I was, even though it sounded like a welcoming place, I was like, no, no, this is going to be so overwhelming. I'm not going to know anything, and it's just going to be, it's all going to go over my head. But I started watching the Welcome to the Party streams and just really fell in love with the Friday night D&D show that was happening at the time, which was Dragon Dark Days, which was a Waterdeep campaign.
Hmm.
And oh my gosh, I just completely fell in love with Waterdeep and those characters, and I was just like, okay, I want to do that. I want to be on the other side. Like I'm sitting here every Friday night watching this show, but oh my goodness, how incredible would it be to be on the other side, to be playing in a situation like that. I want to be a part of it. And so eventually I took the plunge and I joined the Discord. And for a while, it was very, very quiet there. But eventually, I just kind of started interacting and engaging with folks and kind of, slowly but surely learning D&D. I've been in the community about a year and a half. I still don't know my way around D&D. I've got a D&D Beyond and I barely know how to like roll for damage or whatever.
Hmm.
So I'm definitely still learning. But yeah, that was how I started, and it was pretty funny. I picked a very complicated, a different system to start to kind of cut my teeth with for tabletop RPGs. But it's just been a blast ever since.
What was it that you cut your teeth on, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I ended up after joining the community. They were putting out recruitment for a Vampire the Masquerade campaign. And so I ended up doing that. And if anyone's curious to check it out, it was called A Crusade of Thorns, and we do have the entire series on the Welcome to the Party YouTube page. Oh my goodness, it was so incredible to be a part of. It was for the more experienced folks. It was kind of like a tribute to LARPing because there were all three of the factions that exist in Vampire the Masquerade, and each game would happen on a weekly episode and would influence the next episode of everyone else's game. And it was absolutely wild. It was an incredibly intense undertaking, but I had just some of the most compelling role play moments on that show. It took me forever to understand the mechanics, but despite that, I was just having such an amazing time role playing. And I think I really love Vampire for the role playing aspects that it gives. And yeah, I just had some incredibly memorable moments on that show and just playing that game, and I would definitely do it again. So that was my first one, and as well as Honey Heist, which is pure role playing, and so that was another really fun one shot that I got to be a part of. And so those were kind of my first tastes of what tabletop RPGs I like, and I'm hooked. Like, who said the quote? The GM of Relics and Rarities. I forget what her name is. Deborah Ann Wool. And Deborah Ann Wool, in an interview, said that like tabletop role playing games are like the original. And once you get a taste for that, you can't go back. And I definitely feel the same way. So when Deborah Ann Wool said that in her interview when Relics and Rarities was starting up, I was like, "Yep, that's so true."
It is fascinating that you bring up like how you got your start, because or like when I started, it was through Dungeons and Dragons, but the game that I fell in love with was Vampire, which we played back in like, oh gosh, 99 2000 ish time period. So I'm playing like revised edition Vampire, but it is the game where the role playing just stood out so much between us as players at the table
Yeah,
and storyteller, and just like I still have fond memories. I still email my like the storyteller that ran the game for us to be like, I just want you to know that of like my many years of experience, that you still rock. Like those stories that we told together are still some of those memorable things in my life.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know what it is about Vampire that makes the role playing shine, but it really does. And every time I mention Vampire, like so many people pop up that are like, "Yeah, I love it too." And I think there's so many of us that have just been kind of like that have had those touching moments. So Vampire holds a very special place in my heart, and I would definitely do it again.
I have to ask for personal satisfaction, what clan did you play?
So I played Camarilla, but I played Camarilla, and what was I? I was a Ventru.
Okay.
The irony was by the end of it, my Camarilla Ventru was more Anarch leaning than the Anarchs. Throughout our plotline, without giving away too many spoilers, the prince has to kind of disappear from the city, which is LA. It was 1920s, so it was a noir campaign. And so, okay, well, someone's got to declare praxis. And my character was strongly thinking about it because she had strong ties to the prince. And um, she doesn't. And she maybe partially regrets that. It was one of those tricky moments where it was like, if you do this, you paint a target on your back. But if you don't do this, then you might look weak. And like, should you do this? Should you not? And just in real time having to deal with those decisions, right, in the moment is so much fun. I forget where I was going with that, but yeah.
Hey, that is cool. I love hearing people's stories about vampire and the clans that they play and the interesting stories about their characters, because it's one of those games where, and I'm glad that it's finally happening with like the fantasy side, like Dungeons and Dragons, where people are leaning more towards role playing, like,
Yeah,
and getting stories rather than just like, okay, we're gonna just dungeon crawl and kill things and move along and do something like that. That's been a refreshing thing recently, is finding like the actual play communities and the Twitch streaming and things like that, where you actually see people's characters shine rather than the stereotypical hack and slash of Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah. I am not someone who is into really crunchy systems, and I think that's also because I just have a hard time wrapping my brain around systems. But role playing is what I'm here for, and it's definitely, I think, my favorite part. I have a huge appreciation for masks as well, just because that's such an easy, simple system, powered by the apocalypse system, and it's so easy to pick up and play, and so much of it is role playing based, and I love that.
And here I was just about to ask you about masks.
No way, really.
Yeah, really, because you had mentioned it about that it's an amazing RPG system, and I know that I've had so many people through like the years on Twitter with the TTRPG community, of hearing so many people talk about masks. Masks is great. Masks is great. That I ended up picking up the book. I haven't read it,
Mhm.
sadly, but it's in my drawer next to me, of I want to try this game out, and I've heard so many just great things about it that I was going to ask you, like, what is it that draws you to it? Like, is it just that it's more like story role playing based?
There's a number of things that draw me to it. And I'm blessed enough that because it was so simple, I was able to experience maths as a player in a one shot, and that I was actually able to GM a one shot of it, because it's not overly complicated. So it's really easy to kind of build a story. So I really hugely appreciate that aspect of it, and I hugely appreciate that it is so role playing based. But I think the character creation also really helps to make these characters compelling. You have these bonds that exist between these characters, and they're teenagers, they're teenagers, and they're exploring these different sides of themselves, and it can get really deep and emotional. And I think it's just the magic of those moments, like the sort of the bond that gets built between the characters, um, so quickly and seamlessly, I think is probably one of my favorite things about it. I still talk to the person that I played uh, one of my mass one shots with. Um, and we still kind of reference each other as our superhero names from that one shot, just because it was so much fun, and like I wish those characters could live on, and I hope someday they do. So yeah, I really think you should pick it up and read it and give it a shot, because it's so good. And in particular, I played and then GM'd the same mask supplement, which is Iron Red Soldiers. um, and that particular version of Masked is so similar to reality in so many different ways. There's there's these bird creatures that have taken over Halcyon City, but there's so many parallels to today's world, and having like these these people that are like watching over you, and that you're endangered, and you have to hide your true identity. And there was just so many things in that really spoke to me. And so when I had the opportunity to GM, I was like, no, this is the version of Mass that I want to GM. um, but I've even seen other folks that have played it. Welcome to the Party had a Mass stream at one point, and I remember it being very cathartic for one of my very good friends, because they were able to explore sides of themselves that they didn't get to explore as a teenager. So I think that there's a lot of different things that make Mass so special.
Absolutely. That's the same thing I've heard from a number of other people that either do like short actual plays or have also streamed the game on Twitch. Is that there seems to be like that ending of the game, like once you kind of wrap it up. I've seen so many people talk about how being able to play like that, those type of characters, or have the type of relationships with other people, how meaningful it was to them.
There's something very cathartic about Mass, for sure.
Out of curiosity, because you mentioned being both a player and someone who's run a game, where do you like to find yourself? Like player or DM or GM, whichever you'd like to use as far as a terminology of that nature goes.
I love being a player. I adore role play. I love having those incredibly intense moments where my character gets angry or emotional, and I get to make the audience feel something. That's what I live for. I am very much this person who is a bit of a self-starter and will go, well, if no one else is gonna do it, then fine, I'll take it by the reins and I'll do it. And that's what makes me want to DM or GM sometimes, is just, being able to bring cool ideas to life that I have. But when I did GM, it was very, very nerve-wracking. But I did enjoy it because it was fun to kind of take folks on an adventure, and so I can see myself kind of switching over to the DM hat maybe once or twice again. I want to. I think if I were to run something, I would want to nervously and bravely attempt to run some D&D, either in a sci-fi setting with the dark matter supplement that was released by, I want to say Hit Point Press, but I don't remember. Or go the more wholesome route with it was released by Astrolago Press. It was Witch plus Craft, where you can your D&D characters can have like entire missions around crafting items and stuff like that. It's super, super wholesome. So I'm into that. So I would be, keen to run something like that, probably. Or maybe even vampire. Who knows? I'm too brave. I'm too brave, and then I take things on, and then I'm like, oh no, this was a bad idea.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Vampire is the one game where when I was running it for people, I would have notebooks of, okay, here's all the characters that are in the world. Here's their relationships to everybody in the world and how they feel about each other. And then after every game, it's like, okay, let's go through and see how the players affected each one of them, to see how they change and what they're like, what if they've got their, what their goals are. Has it been influenced by the players? Let's make some adjustments here.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, vampire can get quite complicated, but it's just so good. I just love those intense moments that it brings up. So I remember uh there was, I think, a couple of moments actually with throughout A Crusade of Thorns where my character had those intense moments. And I remember looking down at my Discord, and there was like a couple of DMs, and it was people checking in on me. They're like, yo, you're really like emotional on stream. Like, is this role playing? Are you okay? Like, are you safe? Like, and I was like, yep, I'm fine. This is completely acting. um and other moments where I've just, again, that character's had these intense moments, or had her brain scrambled by an elder, and is very, very much distraught, and you know just hearing from viewers that I made them feel something, it's always so special. So I could sing praises of vampire forever.
I'm gonna have to load it up on YouTube because one of the things that I get to do is when I'm home, I get to just have something on in the background and be able to listen to it. Normally, I watch movies or TV shows to keep myself caught up on everything,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna have to add that because it sounds, number one, it sounds cool, and I love that each show affects like the next show, and that mechanic is just entirely fascinating.
It was intense. We had an ST for each of the games, and then we had like a floating ST. And all of these STs would have weekly meetings just to like make sure that they had everything, like they were holding everything together. It was absolutely just incredible. So I can definitely send you a link to that because it was absolutely memorable. The not the camera, not the Camarilla, not the Annex. What's the other faction? I'm forgetting.
Sabat, Sabat.
Sabat. Oh my goodness, that game was so gory. It was so Sabat. It was absolutely incredible. Um, yeah, no, it was just memorable. Absolutely, I think the most intense undertaking, but just incredible.
Very cool. I'm gonna have to check that. What games, before we start wrapping up and talking about something, the last item that I want to talk to you about? What are you playing? Any games currently?
Yeah, I am in the Friday night D&D game on Welcome to the Party. Currently, we are playing what's it called? Princes of the Apocalypse, I think
Okay.
is the D&D module we're running right now. And so we've called it A Storm of Four, and that's on Welcome to the Party's Twitch channel. That's every Friday night at 6, no, 9 6, I forget, 6 p.m. PST, 9 EST, I believe is the timing on that one. And it's so much fun. I'm just so blessed that I get to play with such an amazing group of people. And it's we just have so much fun, and there's so many great role playing moments. And at the moment I'm playing this tiny squeaky halfling character who is just, she's a wild magic sorcerer, and she has magic fails, and it's just like she just makes people laugh, and I love it. So that's what I'm in right now. I don't unfortunately have too much time to play as much as I'd like, so I'm only in the one show, but it feeds me, so I'm good.
That's awesome, and much love for halflings. I love playing halflings.
Yeah, this is my first halfling actually, so I'm very very excited, and I'm loving it.
Yay! All right. Before we wrap up and get to the end, one of the things that you started doing as of December 14th, 2019.
Oh my god, you have a date and everything.
Hey, number I'm on it mostly because you have it as a pinned tweet, so it's right up there, and I'm like, bam, December 14th, 2019. But I remember you had posted about it, and I definitely know I retweeted it because it's got the little green thing that shows that I did it. So, but you launched a consulting business.
I did. So I launched Maple Consulting, as I like to call it. It's basically diversity and intersectionality consulting. So really, what that means is I've helped an array of people, whatever kind of project you're working on, whether you're building a community or you're writing something or you're, creating art or music or whatever it is that you're working on. I just kind of take a look at it and see how we can make it more inclusive, if inclusivity is needed, or if you're kind of like, you know being respectful to where you're pulling inspiration from, things like that. I've even explained to folks that are like, hey, I don't understand these queer terminologies, do you mind just sitting down and explaining that to me? So really anything and everything that people want to know about, I'm there to support them and give them answers. And I've been so blessed with the reception that I've gotten, and the fact that I've had a couple of clients already, and it's only February 12th right now as of this recording. So I consider myself very, very lucky that I've been able to kind of sit down and, provide people feedback for so many, like the array of projects that I've supported, um, is kind of mind boggling. I didn't expect it to be such a variety of different things that I'd be able to help. But every time someone's like, are you able to help me with this? I'm like, Yeah, absolutely. I know how to help you with that. So I'm very, very blessed, and it's just been a blast. It really does feed me. And it's just really cool to sit down with people and hear what they're working on, and figure out how I can best support them.
It is something that I feel like I've gained so much knowledge by being a part of the tabletop community, in the fact of learning so much about different communities and different cultures, and like the diversity that is out there, because it's something where I feel if you're not a part of it, like you kind of missed out on gaining that knowledge, and just seeing how different people are like, hey, yes, I am doing this project, but I'm looking for people to consult with me to make sure I'm doing it properly, because there has been many a project that has been released way back like 80s and 90s, where it's definitely not any project or any book where it's coming out and you're like, yeah, I don't think they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, and I even to this day I still see that. And there's even though I love Vampire, for example, I have many critiques of Vampire. And even up until recently they're still making mistakes, so it's like maybe we need maybe we need someone that people can kind of come and ask questions to, where it's okay to make those mistakes, and I'm able to kind of help you prevent them before you get dragged for it.
So you will consult on any kind of project?
Yeah, it's I've consulted on community-based work where people are building communities, or they're building a code of conduct, or things like that, and how they're trying to support their communities. I've helped artists that are just looking for sensitivity read to know if they're doing okay. I've helped someone who just like had questions that they wanted answered about being queer and about South Asian culture. I've Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Someone recently was like, "Hey, I've got this project I'm working on. Can you help me out?" So really, it's honest to goodness. If you're curious at all about what I do, I think the best thing to do is just fire me a DM and go, "Hey, this is what I'm working on," and then I'll talk to you a little bit and get to see if I am a good fit. And if I'm not, then I will, point you towards someone that is a much better fit for what you are doing. So yeah, reach out to your local consultant, whoever that is, because they'll definitely point you in the direction of the right person to guide you.
Awesome. And that is number I really like that, if the how you said that if you're not able to help them, you can hopefully, guide them to someone else that may be able to be a better fit for them, because that's really helpful, because I know that there are times where you reach out to people and you're like, oh, can you help me? Well, no, that's not really what I do, and then that's it. And okay, well,
Yeah, no, and that sucks, right? Because you're trying with such genuine intent to do the right thing. I had someone who approached me about Indigenous matters, and I said, thank you very much, but I'm definitely not the expert there. However, I do have a very good friend who does consulting work, who is Indigenous, who would be a great person for you to consult with, right? So it's all about sharing the love.
absolutely. Now, Leona, we have gotten to the stage here where we're at the end of the episode.
Oh,
So
it passed by so quickly.
I know and that's always the joy that I have, is I love getting to meet new people and talk to new people, and I want the people that have listened to your episode to be able to find you on the internet, whether they just want to follow you for the goodness that you post on Twitter, or if they're looking for a consultant. So, where are the best places that people can find you, to reach out to you, to follow you on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main place that I live is on Twitter. So you can find me on Twitter at the Leona Maple. That's where you can hear about my intersectionality consulting business. You can reach out to me there. You can also reach out to me on Discord. I am most often found in the Welcome to the Party Discord. So definitely, if you join there, I'm a moderator there, and so you'll be very easily able to connect with me and reach out to me, and we can chat about whatever it is that you want to chat about. And besides both of those things, Yeah, that's kind of the main two places where you can find me. And I'll mention the show that I work on as well in a bit. But yeah, those are the kind of two main places to reach out to me at the moment. Is either my Twitter or through Discord.
Okay, awesome. I will make sure to have the links in our show notes and Facebook page and website so that way people who are listening, you can easily click on those links and go find Leona and give her a follow. And if you need her assistance, definitely reach out and do that. But Leona, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on today and talking about some of the fandoms that you're into.
Thank you for having me. It was so cool. I wasn't expecting you to be able to pull so many stories out from me, but you did an amazing job, and I had a blast.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. I love the stories.
Yeah. Is it okay if I mention one more project that I kind of work on that some folks might be interested in hearing about?
Oh, absolutely. Go right ahead.
I just wanted to mention a show that I help produce on Welcome to the Party. It's called Vibrant, Visible, Victorious. It's an all BIMPOC, so Black, Indigenous, mixed folks, and people of color. It's specifically just for those folks. It's a one-shot series that we run on the channel. And so if you are a member of those communities, please feel free to join Welcome to the Party, and we'd love to have you on the show. Or if you're someone that just wants to check it out and support this community, then please feel free to check it out. It's super easy to get involved with the show, but it's another project that I run and that I'm very passionate about. So you'll see me tweet about that as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure that I have that specifically in the show notes, so that way people can, if they're listening and they fall into those categories, make sure to go check it out. Check out the Twitch stream of it, and then jump on the Discord.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.